And so let's just start with our first presenter, who's Dr. Laura Globig. She is a cognitive neuroscientist and a postdoctoral researcher at New York University. She obtained her PhD from the University College in London, was a visiting scholar at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Her research focuses on how AI systems and online platforms shape human behavior. She explores ways to redesign these systems for more adaptive and constructive outcomes. And today she will present us her project on how to make AI a tool for stronger, more reliable science. Dr. Globig, the vital floor is yours.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that kind introduction. I'm going to share my screen, and I assume you can all see it. Great.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Okay, so thank you for having me. Yeah, today I'm going to present a project where we're seeking to understand and mitigate the impact of AI on scientific cognition and research integrity. So calls to strengthen research integrity, reproducibility, and open science now dominate scientific discourse. Funding bodies, journals, and professional societies have issued guidelines, badges, and policies aimed at curbing questionable research practices and encouraging replication. But there's one tool that is already fundamentally reshaping how scientists work today, whose potential to further open science practices has nonetheless received remarkably little systematic scrutiny, and that is artificial intelligence. Generative AI is being woven into every stage of scientific inquiry. Within 2 months of release, ChatGPT had surpassed 100 million users, and recent surveys show that over 80% of active researchers deploy large language models for literature research, coding, statistical analysis, or even manuscript drafting on a daily basis. And that is because these LLMs promise unprecedented efficiency. Existing work shows that productivity has drastically increased since the widespread rollout of AI models. Yet, as I'm sure we all know, these models can also hallucinate references, propagate training data bias, and may narrow the space of scientific ideas and reduce creativity and critical thinking. If left unchecked, these tendencies threaten reproducibility and epistemic diversity. Nevertheless, I argue that given its already pervasive use, AI actually presents a powerful opportunity to advance open science practices, in addition to its positive impact on productivity. Specifically, I believe that by automating documentation, surfacing conflicting evidence, and encouraging pre-registration or transparent reporting, AI can actually help embed rigor and reproducibility into the research process, particularly in fields where skepticism towards transparency has traditionally prevailed. And I'll tell you why I have this conviction. Now, I trained as a cognitive neuroscientist, and in my day-to-day research, I study how people evaluate evidence, how they update their beliefs, and how bias distorts decision-making, as well as how we can correct this behavior using the right incentives. And with the onset of AI models, I noticed that academics, as well as the general public, started treating AI outputs as authoritative, even when knowing that AI sometimes fabricates references, and so forth. So to better understand trust in AI, we surveyed over 6,000 participants across 6 countries. And we found that the majority of people actually preferred receiving corrective feedback from an AI model over another human. And they felt that way because they perceived the AI to be less judgmental, more objective, as well as, of course, faster and more efficient. And we have since shown this preference for AI over humans in a variety of other settings too. Even with highly identity-sensitive topics such as politics, people expressly preferred receiving information from AI, shown in the blue color, over humans, regardless of whether those humans had the same political convictions as them, shown in the yellow color, or different ones. And this also holds in the real world. In fact, just last week, we had a municipal election in New York that was highly polarized. So we set out to study whether a fine-tuned chatbot could improve voter education irrespective of political ideology. And as you can see here, it did. Voters who engaged with the chatbot were significantly more informed about the election after just one chatbot conversation. And they also expressed that they enjoyed engaging with this chatbot more than our control condition. Now, this finding of people being more willing to engage with AI than humans and those interactions being beneficial doesn't just stem from our lab. In fact, many others have since shown that if done well, these chatbots can successfully reduce conspiracy beliefs and reduce polarization, even in people who say they are themselves critical of AI. So with this project, my goal is to tackle the core challenge of ensuring that AI strengthens rather than undermines the integrity of scientific research through two interconnected aims. First, I'll empirically map how scientists are currently using GenAI. And informed by this work, I'll then develop and evaluate a fine-tuned research integrity assistant that fosters open science literacy, critical thinking, and methodological rigor. Now, to develop an effective research assistant, we need to first understand how researchers actually use AI. And you might say that there are already several studies on the topic, and while these studies provide valuable insights, they tend to rely on self-report measures. And as I'm sure we've all experienced with our smartphones telling us how much time we actually spent doom scrolling last week, it's very easy to underestimate and hard to keep track of what exactly we use a given technology for. To get a more objective measure, we'll therefore combine real chatbot interaction data donations with fortnightly experience sampling from at least 300 scientists across all career stages from varying disciplines, including STEM, humanities, and social science across at least 3 continents. To analyze this data, we'll then use semantic analysis, that is a type of text analysis and topic modeling, to identify key task categories. Building on these task categories, we'll then also investigate more fine-grained patterns that may facilitate questionable research practices, as well as demographic variability and temporal changes to determine the impact of AI on scientific cognition. And we've already successfully used this method of data donation and LLM-based annotation and validated it against human coders. Now, this type of data-driven bottom-up approach reduces any subjective bias, but also allows us to assess whether researchers' subjective perceptions match their behavior. This study will provide the first empirically grounded taxonomy of AI use in science, made openly available in anonymized form for meta-research, and also provides crucial insights for the development of our chatbot. So traditionally, open science interventions often face resistance, partly because they're effortful, and partly because corrective feedback from human peers can feel threatening. Building on our findings that learning is impeded by group identity, and our study showing that people accept corrected information more readily from AI than humans, I'll test whether a fine-tuned generative AI assistant can foster open science literacy and rigorous scientific thinking. I'll create a research integrity assistant fine-tuned on curated data training materials covering best practices in replication, data sharing, pre-registration, transparent reporting, and critical evaluation strategies, drawing from frameworks such as the Transparency and Openness Promotion Guidelines by NOSEC. The assistant will deliver context-sensitive prompts, for example, suggesting pre-registration during study design discussions or offering data sharing templates during result interpretation, while employing Socratic questioning to encourage reflection on assumptions. Using reinforcement learning from human feedback, an ability that is already inbuilt in these models, the assistant will then dynamically adapt to each user's engagement style and feedback sensitivity, balancing encouragement with constructive challenge to promote critical reflection. In a randomized controlled trial with early career researchers, I'll then compare the research integrity assistant to a standard AI assistant over a period of 6 weeks, measuring adoption of open science practices, gains in open science literacy, and improvement in analytical rigor. The assistant will be developed as an open source, easily deployable tool, adaptable across disciplines and particularly suited for researchers in under-resourced environments. We'll also compare fine-tuning across different models and compare the efficacy of fine-tuning to prompt scaffolding, a technique which has recently garnered popularity and allows for easier implementation. This unified approach will embed principles of transparency, reproducibility, and critical reasoning into daily research workflows while dynamically adapting to maximize its lasting impact. Given that users can simply integrate this tool into their existing models of choice, we hope for widespread researcher adoption with marginal environmental costs, since we are not adding an additional, but rather augmenting an existing tool. We'll also work with universities, conferences, and researchers to broaden use, for instance, by hosting workshops, and will allow for continuous updating of the assistant based on novel changes in science. As Alex and Gupta recently expressed in a Nature opinion piece, AI isn't just another research tool. It is redefining what research is, how it is done. Rather than fighting against the inevitable use of it, we want to actively harness AI as a catalyst for improved scientific quality across disciplines, rather than a conduit for hidden errors or entrenched bias. In the long run, this project could also be scaled to the educational sector at large in an effort to reduce fraud. To achieve all this, I'll be partnering with Dr. Jay van Bevel and the Center for Conflict and Cooperation at NYU, an internationally recognized authority on social psychology and science communication. As a lab, we are uniquely positioned to turn evidence into actionable guidance for journals, funders, and researchers worldwide. If you'd like to know more about our ongoing work, I've provided a QR code here to some of our recent papers. Thank you.